Okay, hello lovely people. My name is Jason Coggins. I'm the head of sales for Gimmal for the UK and Europe region. And this is the Gimmal podcast. Welcome. I'm also joined here by Graham Bidwell, who's the CEO at Office Labs. Thank you for joining us, Graham.
Thank you, Jason.
And we're going to be talking about everything that's data governance and what's right and wrong in the industry. And I'm glad that you're here for the ride. So let's get into it. Graham, just something that's been on my mind, really, I probably want to start things off with. We're in the data governance space. Governance is a word that's thrown around quite regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my opinion, I think during the COVID era, where people were working from home, governance really was governance, and I think there was a big drive for organisations certainly to get their act together because they simply didn't have any tooling or whatever, or no mechanism to ensure data governance during that period of time where their workers were working from home. And it feels like now we're slowly getting back into the office. Organisations are more focusing on perhaps more risk rather than governance per se.
Yep.
Do you see that? Is that something that you think you does that resonate with you? What do you think about that?
Well, you've gone straight to the heart of it. I think mentioning the time before lockdown, COVID, working from home. Just to talk about that for a second,
sure,
because that's a really interesting point and a pivot, I think, on the way behaviours have changed, certainly in organisations and the way people operate with data and with their information. Prior, Office Labs, information management company, use the Gimmal products, work with the Gimmal products to bring about better data management, better information management. Simple as that, really. And we were trying to encourage and trying to work with businesses to bring this level of management into their information. And there was a lot of, it's all behind closed doors. It's all under lock and key. The data doesn't go anywhere. There's no connection. There's no connection to the outside world. There's no sharing. There's no need, because the data sits there in a box under somebody's desk, and everybody comes to the data. So
right.
That's a really interesting place to start, because why would I worry about it? I know that I've got antivirus, I've got software that keeps it locked down, the passwords are managed, everything, the processes are there, we're following the security protocols. I don't need to do any more. I know where the server is, I know where the backups are. There was a lot more manual work involved. I think there was a lot more physical as well. I think cloud was still early days, early-ish, sort of mid days. Companies were adopting cloud and they were going forward with it. And that brought the data sharing, the data management, data governance into play. But it was only after people started working from home seriously, where devices were being rolled out, so endpoints had to be managed. Data was being shared. Who was it being shared with? Then suddenly people would ping it across WhatsApp. They'd start using their own tools. They'd start managing their own little processes. They'd start making their own silos. They'd start all this stuff. And this is all traditional problems. People have always done this.
Yeah.
But it was much more controlled and within a walled garden, if you like.
Yeah.
It was all manageable because it was in the bubble, in the sphere that you could manage. And then it's not. Then it's not being managed. It's all out there, and people are going to find the path of least resistance. They're very much going to find easier ways to do their work. So what you have to do is work with the processes and work with the way people work, without bringing in heavy duty, cumbersome, difficult to manage, difficult to operate. Require 3 admin staff. Need a bunch of policy writers, need a bunch of people who are going to do it all and manage it all. These days, it's not realistic.
No,
it's not realistic. It's a huge cost overhead to do that sort of thing.
That's right.
So, to answer your question, to get back to it. So,
it's a big question.
Well, that's what I thought. When it was a big question. It was a cracking opener. I will say that the information management and governance area is much wider and has a much larger impact than most businesses realise.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, that's something I've definitely seen. Interesting. And so you think really where, using lockdown and COVID as the example, where the drive was really just to, ensure that productivity was met. Like make sure, let's just send our users at home a laptop, make sure they're working.
And that was the concern.
Yeah,
that was the concern. The device.
That's right. There it was. Yeah, absolutely.
Have they got a device? Are they connected to the internet? Do they have a camera? Do they have headset? Good. Right, they can work. Crack on.
Yeah, that was it. And then it was like, actually,
yeah,
a lot of information and records and data that is currently now outside of our organisation that we've got no control of.
Yes,
and that was a massive knee-jerk reaction to then what tooling can we go and buy to try and fix this or monitor or. Yeah. And we saw lots of organisations get muddled up between productivity monitoring and data governance. I think there's sometimes people are thinking what do we need to look at first? Like what's important?
Yeah.
So I still think some of the organisations we speak to still have that hangover, and they're still a bit confused as to what actually should I be looking at in terms of monitoring our data and our records? Like what's actually important? And I think we're still very much on that journey. And unfortunately, in this space, in the data governance space, there's a lot of education required to help our prospects understand or customers and clients understand the problems we fix. Would you agree?
I completely agree. I think there's a level of knowledge within a business. So compliance people, records managers, people, security, definitely. There are teams, there are individuals who very much know this subject. They know it very well. They know the business really well. They can produce the rules. They know the rules they have to abide by. They know the boundaries which they can work within. But then they've got to enforce it. How do you bring that into an organisation and actually make it real? Because posting a policy on an intranet is one thing, and saying everybody must read this and do this. Absolutely, yes, of course. However, the reality is you've got to put in those controls, and it's so much easier now. It's so much easier. The products that are available we know this from the security products. So endpoint management through to file encryption through to password management. There's something for everything. Network controls,
sure.
Smart monitoring, real-time stuff, reporting. All of this exists, and I think there is a lack of awareness of what's available with tools like the Gimmal suite, with records management, with discovery, with physical management.
Yeah, good point.
It's like, wow, you to be able to search your physical records through your intranet or through a portal or through a search, digitally search physical records and manage them through to the endpoint, through their complete life cycle. That's game changing. That saves, having several people just hunt through boxes.
Absolutely.
And rubber stamp things in and out. Because the tools are there to do all this. And I think there is an understanding in businesses, they know what they need. Most businesses that handle information appreciate the level of compliance they have to work with. They know this.
That's true.
What they don't know is who can help.
That's right.
How it can be, how they can be supported.
Yeah.
So often they're left powerless, I think. They've written the policies, they've written the rules, they're up to date, they're compliant with rules and regulations which are continually changing, especially with the way technology is moving now. The rules are playing catch up.
Yeah.
But the tools are there to support it.
Yeah, great. And how at Office Labs do you speak with clients and take them on that journey? Like, what does that look like for a person dealing with these kind of challenges that approaches yourself and your good team, who I know work very well at Office Labs?
Yeah.
What do you take them through, like a triaging type journey? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a consultancy approach. So it's about understanding. I would say it's more about listening than talking, particularly for the first part. We really need to understand. There's a balance here. The businesses can follow a similar model on the way they operate and the way they do business. However, there will be intricacies. So to say you take one type of manufacturing business and you can, overlay it across another one, is incorrect. I think there are certainly similarities.
Yeah.
That certain businesses, especially in the operational space, there are similarities with the departments, with the way they run, the way they operate. But as soon as you get down past that first layer and start speaking with the people who are doing the job, who are actually performing the processes
with you,
that's when you start to get into the territory of it being unique. Of, somebody does this because that's the way we've always done it, because that's where we've come from, that's the tools that were available at the time.
Yep.
That's the easiest, again, path of least resistance.
Got you.
That's the way that we found that works. So that's the way we're going to, we get, and they tweak and things. But it's listening and understanding. Then it's knowing what level of governance and compliance that they need. What are they adhering to? Is it a security thing? Is it more rules and laws? Is it compliance? Is it like financial rules, that side of things?
Yeah.
Or are they just doing it as their internal quality control?
With you.
So you've got multiple areas. You're coming from different angles.
Got you. Yeah.
Into the governance area. Then you've got to really display the benefits. You've got to really show the benefit, because this is a lot of this work is it's not revenue generating. It's an internal cost. So that's, just be honest about this. Let's be open about this. It's
absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to do a good job of showing that, this is, returning an investment at the end of the day.
Yes. Yeah. And it's really hard to see.
Yeah.
But if you're lowering risk, you're lowering your risk level. If you're making things more efficient, if you're taking people off of the mundane tasks. So with Office Labs, it's about automation. It's about bringing in the right tools to support people to do their job, to enable them to do their job better.
With you.
Get them out of the just box ticking, form filling, rubber stamping, error prone, high risk processes where if they make a mistake, it's going to be costly, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be hard to come back from.
With you.
And put that in the technology realm.
Yeah.
But then once you do that, the next part of that is very much around changing behaviors. So it's understanding that the way that the business is running is going to have to adapt to that. So they have to be on board. They have to be part of it. They have to be part of the decision making, of the design work.
With you.
And I think that's what stands out for me with the Gimmal side of things. Is because the Gimmal team, the technical, through to the the implementation and the guys that help configure and help deliver the software, they get it. They get the journey.
Absolutely.
That we're on. It's not just hand us a product and crack on. Off you go, guys. It's about forming a team with the client, with Gimmal, with Office Labs, and having the right people in the room, in the team to be able to deliver what's needed to the highest level.
Absolutely.
So that and that's the journey, I think, which we all work on.
I couldn't agree with you more. No, that's worth exploring.
Yeah, it works well.
Yeah. Great. Well, Graham, I'm going to have to talk about it because I know everybody is. It's about AI. And
oh, yeah.
You look panicked then. Like,
no. I wonder where we're going. I thought it's going to be going to get personal then.
I know it's exhausting because everybody.
No, it's not. I love it. Bring it on.
Talking about it.
Can't get enough.
That's right. Well, in terms of data governance and organisations that are looking to, roll out Copilot, roll out, these AI tools to try and reap the benefits of the productivity from these tooling offerings. What, in your opinion, what do you feel is missing on that journey, generally speaking, when organisations are looking to acquire this tech? Like, what are the main pitfalls that you see the organisations not looking at or addressing correctly?
I'm smiling. I'm just wondering how much time we've got to talk about this because, you've hit on
all morning
a superb subject. So we've been doing, and I'll go back to before lockdown and before that, and traditional office work and the way it used to be. So Office Labs have been promoting automation and information management, governance, compliance, workflows for 12 years. And it's been all about how to make things easier, how to take how to make the steps happen automatically, how to take the mundane out, how to remove the risk, etc. And now we're at this point where we've got these tools, these intelligent tools, and there's so much opportunity here. It's enormous.
It's massive.
The wealth of opportunity is incredible. And with that comes the increased risk and the increased governance and the overhead, especially with the speed it's going at. I've got a feeling from clients that we've spoken to is that there's a feeling of, well, I have to be on it. I have to be involved in this, or else I'm going to miss out.
Yeah.
So there is a concern for me is that organisations are going out, buying the licenses, releasing the products, and there you go, guys. I've licensed everyone in my chosen AI stack. Off you go.
Yeah.
And there's little training. There's little in the way of training and formal understanding and change management and behaviour and embedding and realising how it serves the business and which direction is it. Is it helping the direction of the business? So the business has got a strategy and it's got a vision. Every business has got the strategy and the vision and the plan, and we know where we're going. We know where we want to be. Is your choice of using AI and the way you work with your data and your information, is that supporting your vision, your strategy, your way forward? Is everybody on board? Are we doing this for the right reasons? So you can say that about any tech, but I think in particular it's relevant with AI. So to take a step back, we've got a number of problems with the AI. So the benefits are huge. The ability to generate content, the ability to process information, to be able to manage it better, to tag it, to know what we've got, to create reports, to have real-time monitoring of information. AI is awesome at all of that. Give it a rule, give it something to do, give it a task to follow. It will go and find, it will tag, it will respond, it will alert, it will report, it will delete, it will manage life cycle. All of that stuff is incredible, superbly helpful, supremely useful for a business because you're saving man hours, you're saving time, you're catching errors, you're not missing out on things. However, on the flip side, so I talked about generation. Yeah. We've got content being created, huge rate, and any content from written. From people just creating 3 or 4 drafts of their emails in AI.
Just emails alone,
just emails alone.
Yes.
So when we're talking about email management and looking after inboxes are going to, there's no two ways about it. The email's not going anywhere.
No.
Yes, we can have AI to manage it and to control it a bit more and to categorize it and move it into different folders and put different retention rules around it and all that stuff. And again, Gimmal, is in that space. Which is supremely helpful because email is just growing and growing. Then documents. I can turn out a document that used to take me a couple of days to write now. It takes me half a day to write.
Yeah.
And it's still and it's still usable, workable, isn't too AI'd, isn't, it's a good piece of work, but it just speeds things up. But because of this, we've got a huge amount of information being stored now. And I'm really not sure that some of the basics are being covered. So life cycle, retention.
Where it's being stored?
Where it's being stored, yes.
Lots of organisations are using Outlook and Exchange as their repository.
Yes. OneDrive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
OneDrive, we use this OneDrive account that we chuck everything into. It's a horror story. And then you've got across Google Drives, Dropbox, Box.
Yeah.
There's a multitude. WhatsApp.
It's a problem.
Don't go there.
Oh, yeah.
But realistically, they're creating more silos again, which have to be managed. and have to be brought within the rules. But if you don't know about them and you don't know that they're there, and you've got to do data discovery, you've got to do a discovery across your everything from your machines through to your storage areas to across your cloud services. Again, that's Gimmal's world.
That's something I think that's really overlooked. I think a lot of organisations don't tend to look at their data on the endpoint. They'll just look at, perhaps they'll look at their share drives or Dropbox or something like that.
Yep.
And then they look to, leverage, let's say, Microsoft Copilot or some kind of AI mechanism, and they'll trial it, and then they'll realise that this is actually super powerful, and we actually don't know what data exists within an organisation, where it actually is. And now when we roll out Copilot, we're literally going to be giving access to this data that we don't know in terms of its sensitivity regulation. Like, we're going to be giving that, we're going to be opening it up to every single individual in the business. That's like the worst case scenario. So I'm seeing a lot of Copilot pilots or trials stalling. There's this term, Copilot stuck in pilot, because organizations are realizing that, hang on a minute, if we continue rolling this out without any data discovery and ability to classify the data and understand what is sensitive, it opens up a massive risk to the organization. Is that something that you've seen with your practice?
Yeah, it's probably one of the most common scenarios is nothing's been categorized. So the UK is in general, our data protection rules are pretty good, if a little out of date. However, the guidance around how long you should keep data for and data life cycle, I think, is lacking.
Definitely.
We as a nation definitely hold on to everything. There was a recent part about there was something in the news about it was wills that were being held on to,
right? Paper-based
wills of people of stature or importance, that I think the government look after. And these paper-based wills, somebody said, well, why are we paying for storage of these? Why are we looking after them? Let's just digitize them, shred the original, and we're done. And there was a fair bit of outcry because some of these were actually historical items. There was importance, there was value to them as the item itself.
Artifacts.
Never mind what had been written on them. So that went backwards, and the decision is to keep everything and not digitize everything. Which is okay. I'm not saying that's a wrong decision. I'm saying that is the decision, and I believe that's quite embedded in our culture.
Absolutely, we're all hoarders.
We're all hoarding. We're all data hoarders.
We are.
And it's like even going back into your email. Oh, I found I've got emails there from 2016, 2015.
Yeah, right.
I might need those. Not me personally. I'll just, wipe the lot.
That's good.
Start fresh every day. But there are people that are keeping. I might need that. I created that. I took a long time creating that. It took me, weeks of research and an effort to put this together.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me to just delete it?
Yeah. It's like Stockholm syndrome, isn't it? When you fall in love with your captor and
got to keep all this
data. You're attached to that data now.
You do. Yeah, you got because in your head it's got some value.
Yeah.
So I think that goes to another point, which is really complex. When does data have value and when doesn't it have value? When is it valuable for the business? And those metrics around what provides value is it knowledge for the business? So is this corporate memory that we're talking about? So this is information about how we run, how we operate, who we are as a business, and how we do things. What do our processes look like? What do our policies look like? How does it support the strategy? How does it support the vision going forward?
Yeah.
Does it support it? And then you can look at, once you found it, you can start to get into the review side of things. Now, this is where the AI stuff starts to come into its own. We talk about releasing the AI across an organization for people as individuals to work on.
Yeah.
But we can turn that power in to look internally. we can take an AI and we can give it the instructions to say, if the data is this old, if it contains this information, if it's relevant to the way we work based on these rules, then give it a score, give it a value score. So you can start to bring it into review information, because it's another thing. People don't they don't clear out the back of their cupboards on a daily basis, because you know what's in there, and it fills up and stuff accumulates, but you don't go through it every other day.
Yeah,
and you don't want to, so we put it off. So okay, we've got these problems. We're hoarding. We're a nation of data hoarders. Then we have to spring clean every now and again, but we're only going to go through it when we have to. We're not going to do it as by routine.
Sure.
So that's two problems right there. So we need technology. We need applications which can go and find the information, categorize it for us, put a label on it so we know what we've got, report back, and then once we've got all that in order, we can then put the overlay of what to do with it, of activity and action.
Yeah.
We can perform actions on that data based on the classification, the ruling, the labeling.
That's right.
We can now either store it somewhere else, archive it long term, or just get rid of it. So that's where the value comes in.
I agree. I think it's not just housekeeping. I think the conversation was about housekeeping maybe 10 years ago.
Yes.
But
yes,
now it's not. Now this is something that I think is overlooked massively. And even just to reduce data risk, one of the easiest things organizations can do, in my opinion, is to understand what data they've got that's sensitive, that's maybe outside of policy, or it's stale, or it's outside of their retention schedule, right? That they still have full responsibility for, like it's still regulated. Like start there. Like what data have you got that's stale, rot, historic, and sensitive? Get rid of it, because that's risk that's something that's unnecessary.
Yeah,
I think a lot of organisations don't start there. They perhaps start with the data that's being worked on the daily in terms of discovery and but that's something that is in retention period and something that is being worked on the daily. It's something that you can't really touch because it's being used. But there's a massive, scary element of data in that, historic, stale, and sensitive region, in my opinion. Would you agree?
I couldn't agree more. I think work in progress information is your least risky.
Yeah.
Because people are aware of it. They know where it is. They know what it contains.
Absolutely.
It's still fresh.
Yeah.
And still being used and being processed. And it's part of the process of what's going on. It is that older information which is sitting there gathering dust, which people don't remember what's in it. There's, when you talk about, you said about housekeeping and way back, and it was about housekeeping. The move to cloud environments. So at the beginning, when we were starting to move away from internal infrastructure, internally hosted data centers, computer rooms, our own racks, and we were starting to take all that information and migrate it over to the cloud. So Office Labs have been doing that since the start of the big shift over to cloud, and still going. Actually, they are still doing migrations, more complex now,
I can imagine.
less simplistic, more complex. But what we found at the time is that organizations would be horrified and surprised in equal measure. They would assess what they had. They had a few terabytes of data. It was in this location. Then they'd build out their environment within the cloud environment. So the cloud structure, they would get ready. They would get the wall ready around the outside. They would manage the accessibility, the security, and they would put some form of architecture in, probably just a bunch of folders, realistically. And then they migrate across. And the very first time they used the search, because everything was indexed, all content, you type in the word password, Wi-Fi, credit card, passport, all sorts would come up. and it was immediate. It was immediate because all content was being searched, indexed for the very first time.
I see.
All the way through all of the internals, because you couldn't do that before. You would just search for a file name.
Of course. Yeah.
And you'd run, or if it got difficult, you'd run a command line search to try and find things. So, and then suddenly exposed completely. And that's what we're seeing a repetition of with AI. We're seeing a complete repetition of that, but it's in the cloud.
That's right.
Yes, but this is blown right through what you thought was a good security model internally, good information management model, and information management architecture that you thought you had in place. You didn't, because the AI is just going right across it and saying, I found this in answer to your question.
Yeah.
And did you know that the salary details for this person are this? It's like, it goes even, because AI goes even deeper. It's because it'll find the answer to your question, and then it'll find something that's vaguely associated with that answer and bring that to the fore as well.
Yeah. And of course, combine that with some sophisticated prompt engineering.
Yes.
Prompt engineering?
Yeah, prompt engineering.
Tell me what the CEO earns, and up it comes, or the value of this merger and acquisition that's happening next week, that kind of thing, and all that can be available to anyone in the business.
That's a real. Can we? I don't know if that's in the questions, but mergers and acquisitions.
Absolutely.
I do want to talk about mergers and acquisitions.
Let's talk about it now.
So that's a big deal. So Office Labs have been involved in a number of demergers, mergers and acquisitions, where organizations have had to separate out their information.
Yes.
In some forms, it's easier now because you can have these multiple cloud environments which you can operate in.
Yeah.
There's some work that you can do in parallel, moving things around, and you can have some pretty good walls around these things. But the legality of ensuring that the right entity has the right information for the right time,
of course,
has become immensely complex.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. There's an example. We were working with a large scale logistics and storage organization, and they were demerging part of their European side of of the business to another business, and on paper it was complex enough doing the legalities and the contractual side of things.
With you,
but there were hard written rules in there about when information could be shared and with whom and what information. So being able to isolate and understand and be able to tag and put the metadata around that information and have the knowledge and the reporting that you could confirm and you could actually responsibly give a report saying, here's the information, here's how it's being managed, here's who's got access to it.
Right.
And this is the plan of where it's going, and this is the date and the time when these people will have access to that information. So you're looking at a hugely complex management of who has access at what time.
With you, yeah.
And it's got to match the legality of the contractual side of things. So you can't do that manually. No. You can't do that with a bunch of scripts or some spreadsheets. You need software control. You need applications in there. You need the right applications to support that level of work that needs to be involved there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So the Gimmal tools, that's exactly what you need in place. So mergers and acquisitions is a huge subject. And again, there's work you can do when bringing organizations together as well. That's such a complex piece.
Massive.
The change management, the behavioral management, the never mind bringing the processes, the people.
The data alone,
you're
about to become the new owner of a lot of sensitive data. And what does that look like? What does that mean for the business?
Yeah.
How can we, visualize our risk in terms of the amount of data that's regulated we've got in our possession from now on? Big questions.
Enormous. And again, we come back to value. Now these businesses are combined as a single entity. Our vision, our strategy, is the data supporting that? Or have we brought across legacy information, which is duplication, repetition? Do we not need it anymore?
Absolutely.
Can we get rid of it? Can we end of life cycle this? And the opposite is that people will archive information that is of value.
Yes.
Oh, don't need it. What are you going to do about that? Don't need it. How do you know that? How do you know there isn't value, there isn't gold in that data which you need, and you're just going to overlook it? And again, that's the AI question, and being able to sift through and do reviews internally. That's where the AI value is.
That's the real use case. That's something that you're going to part with money to acquire AI to fix that problem.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of vendors tend to, masquerade their AI for fixing problems that aren't real problems. I think that's something that as a buyer, like I'd really want to make sure that if I'm going to spend this kind of money, and it's not cheap, like some of the AI capabilities on the market right now, they're very expensive mechanisms, and you've got to make sure that you're actually fixing a problem that's worth fixing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's a problem right now in the industry, is that vendors are mixed up with what problems they're trying to fix, and is it really viable to part with £100,000 a year, for example, to fix that problem?
Yep. There are so many new vendors applications popping up. So with AI, we can build stuff faster. We can get the time to market has been shortened dramatically. However, the big caveat there is there's issues with, and slightly off topic, but there is the risk of generating code which has got copyright issues.
Right.
It's got security issues, compliance issues in the code and in the products. And we don't know to what extent that's going to look like yet, because there is so much that's being machine coded that isn't being managed in the standard developer channels.
With you.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
We're absolutely confident that Gimmal are on the right side of that. There's no issues with the products. It's been around for so long.
Yeah.
With and updated the right way, so it's all followed the right methods. There is this issue of applying the wrong tools, choosing the wrong thing because of the shiny marketing, because of the promises. The promises are interesting.
Oh yeah, I've seen a few.
I was watching one yesterday, and there was a guarantee of a return on investment.
Oh dear!
And I don't do that. Guarantee of a return on investment. Okay. The way we work with bringing automation and workflows and changes into a business. So there's so much you can do, which isn't necessarily AI. There's so much you can do, which is around sort of machine learning, maybe, or it's just automating steps. So Microsoft and the Power Platform, there's a lot of power and a lot of capability in just automating workflows. So that may seem like it's not the flavor of the month or not the cutting edge side of things, but it's safe.
Yeah, I've seen you demonstrate it. I think your colleague has shown me a few times on the demonstrations we've had together. Yeah, very powerful.
It hugely powerful, and again, it's having the right combination of tools. So if you've got your Microsoft 365 environment and your Microsoft embedded business, so if you're using 365 for your email, for your document storage, for personal documents in OneDrive, if you're using it for your intranet, if you're using Teams, heavy usage, there's a huge amount of underlying capability within Microsoft to work in your data. AI is one small part of that.
That's right.
The way you can work with automation and being able to repeat tasks simply and easily changes things dramatically.
That's great. So on that subject, Graham, typically, could you give us an example of perhaps a use case that's been presented to your organisation where that would help? Like, what sort of problems are you fixing with those automations?
There's one that springs to mind is dealing with incoming invoices.
All right.
So an organisation that has an awful lot of suppliers or clients even, but mostly supplier-based invoicing.
Yeah.
So an organisation has got hundreds of invoices coming in a month that have to be linked up to a PO. They have to be brought in as part of the process.
Yep.
They have to understand that these invoices that are coming in, do they need paying? When do they need paying? What does that process look like? And often there'll be a few people involved in that process of having to sift through. So immediately you've got a level of error, which can happen.
Yep.
And that can slow the process down. And then you get, an annoyed supplier that doesn't get paid on time.
Sure.
Or missed completely. So we have a solution within 365 that does actually, it does use AI.
Cool.
Why I say that in a negative way. Don't know why. After that.
It uses AI, everyone.
Yeah. You should be excited.
Yeah.
But it does ingest those invoices. It does use the AI to understand the line items, the amounts, assign it to make sure it's got a PO that it's linked to, and then sends it for approval.
Yeah.
But the approval process is a lot quicker, and requires less people involved to do that.
Yeah.
So that's one of them. That's an example of workflow and automation, which makes a big difference.
Yeah, super useful mechanism there.
Operational, any organization that's looking to bring automation into play need to look at their operations. It's those internal functions, the ones that cost them the most to run, that what can be made more efficient, and how can we free up people's time so they're not just dreading coming into work.
Absolutely.
To sit at their desk rubber stamping a bunch of stuff and doing the same thing day in, day out.
Yeah.
Make it a bit more creative and give them some actual time.
I like it.
Yeah.
Give them their time back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to spend a little bit of time, if you don't mind, just talking about unstructured data, generally speaking.
Yes.
Big problem.
Yes.
So, as we know, lots of unstructured data stored all over the place.
Yes.
It's a real problem for organisations to track what data they have, where it exists, and especially for those organisations that perhaps just don't purely rely on the Office 365 environment. They might have other repositories for their data. Like, that's a real big problem to try and fix. So, when you're advising your clients, Graham, and they're on this journey to ensure that they get control of their data and make sure that it's stored in ways which they can monitor it in a clean way, should we say that phrase? What would be your recommendations on how, to an organisation trying to fix this challenge, like trying to deal with that problem? What would be your advice to them?
What we've seen with clients, they tend to go one of two ways. They either decide on a single platform, so it makes it easier. So they have their chosen vendor, their chosen cloud platform, and there will be controls within that platform which they'll use, and they'll keep everything in there as much as they can do. So that's one way of doing it. Now, this can be a good idea, because on the other side of consolidation of all that information is this utopian one world where everything is all in one place, managed by one set of rules.
That's what Microsoft hope we'll.
They
hope we do this. Yeah,
Well, I was trying to be agnostic there. There's the other cloud vendors are available.
There are. That's true.
But you are right. You are absolutely right. That's what's the promise of Microsoft 365 is that it's all in one place and it's all under your control, and it is very much so. However, in order to get to that place, for some organizations, there is just too much upheaval. It's too disruptive to the business. We have seen fairly large teams of people who have pushed back against that level of consolidation because what they're using works for them, and they don't want that level of disruption at that point in time. So a big migration, a big complex migration. Because remember that migration isn't just data, it's people.
That's right.
You've got to bring people, their processes and their working practices across to whatever new world you're working in. You've got to bring that across as well as just copying the data across. And the rules and everything that goes over the top of that. The other side is we're going to stay where we are. We're going to stay where we are. We're going to keep our multiple platforms because this part of the business uses this and they get on really well. They might be using Box, they might be using Dropbox, Box, and we're using 365 over here for this, and we've got some Google Space over here for these guys, and everybody's happy and everybody's working well. Yeah. There's no major issues. There's no major, it's all under control on a security perspective. We've got the tools in place on the security side of things.
Sure.
On the information management, it's Wild West because we've got a really tightly controlled environment over here. We've got nothing over here.
Right.
And over here, we've got a half-baked solution, which is stopping the worst from happening.
Yeah.
So then that's where they're going to need an application which can sit over the top of everything. So that's where the real power of the Gimmal applications come in, is having that unified, overarching, we're going to control everything that's out there, which is within our sphere to be able to control. So we can go across multiple cloud platforms and storage and local.
Yeah.
Let's talk about local storage.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
We should move everything to the cloud. Should you? Don't know. Depends on the use case. Depends on how it's being used. There are organizations out there that can't put there's data that can't go to the cloud.
Sure.
Then there are other choices around AI tools. Let's go back to this. Bring AI back into it again. Yeah. Costly.
Very costly
to run them. The compute power. For every cycle you're paying for, every spin of the clock you're paying for.
That's still a big problem, I think.
It is a big problem. However, one of the answers to that is running local AI.
Yeah.
So you can stand up your own models, your own engines. You create your own agents all internally on your internal data. So why on earth would I move it?
Absolutely.
I've got everything I need. I've got the tools around it. I'm getting the value from it. It's being processed.
Control it.
It's being controlled.
Yeah.
However, it still doesn't sit under the banner of the organizational practices and the organizational rules, governance rules.
Yes.
You need one set of governance rules, which you can apply to the organization.
That's right.
When you've applied those governance rules to the organization, you've then got to action them. You've got to make them happen across all the data. So Gimmal, that's where that level of control and knowledge and knowing from the unified reports that you're managing your data appropriately, and you can audit that and you can report on it and you can give evidence to say we are managing our data properly. That's so valuable.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially, like you say, cross-platform. That's something that I think really most of our customers are coming to us and speaking to us about is exactly that. Like our data, it does exist everywhere. Like we don't want to put it all in Microsoft.
Yeah.
Microsoft E5 licenses are not cheap, right? Yeah. That's something that comes up. I see regularly with my clients, and absolutely, yeah. I'll buy you a beer for that. Thanks for recommending Gimmal. That end-to-end data governance is super crucial. I think that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Graham, we've talked a lot about data governance, a bit of AI, all that good stuff. I just want to sort of dive a bit deeper into verticals of data governance. And one of my main verticals is organization types, like data governance for a boutique bank, for example, looks very different to data governance for a local authority.
Yeah.
And in your experience, are you seeing this play out in the marketplace? Like, what would a local authority tend to come to Office Labs for and ask for your assistance on in terms of getting their data together? Like, what are you seeing in that respect?
There are different drivers with the different businesses. So it's a good question. We work with everything from local authorities through to boutique investment banks. Is that a thing? Boutique investment banks? Okay. Investment banks. So we work with all of the different verticals that you could, everything from not-for-profit organizations as well. And they've all got their different visions and their different driving forces and their different appetite for governance and compliance. So I think that's a big one as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Those organizations which are a bit more public sector based, and they could be everything from local authorities through to housing and anything that's got a public connection, public service connection. It's ingrained. It's part of the process. It's expected. People know that there is a level of governance and compliance that has to be followed.
Yes.
That there is this extra layer that needs to be maintained. and it's not a surprise. And I think there's more knowledge, and expectation around that. So
adoption,
I think adoption is easier. However, on that side of things, people are spread more thinly. I believe that people are expected to do more, cover more, and there's more manual work. There's more to do. That's my experience of our experience of dealing with public sector side of things.
Agree. Yeah.
I think there's a huge amount of stress. There's a huge amount that needs to be done, and there's knowledge of what needs to be done, and no budgets.
Yeah,
so you've got everything against them.
It's tough.
Yeah,
and they've got lots of data.
Yes,
and lots of unstructured, sensitive data. And in fact, I think I saw in the news last week that 43% of local authorities in the UK are not actually bankrupt, but very nearly bankrupt. Really are struggling financially at the minute.
Yeah.
So it's a real challenge to they've got all of the requirements placed on them by the law to get their data together.
Yes.
But none of the ability to be able to do it effectively in some ways. They know that it's a tough job.
It's a really tough job. And again, it goes back to, I think the knowledge is good of knowing what they should be doing. So they are as far as information management and compliance and governance space, they're in a mature place.
Yeah.
Because they do know what they need to do, and they are doing it. Absolutely. within their capability and their best efforts.
Yeah.
But again, we come back to being able to action. And I think that's where the gap, it's that inability to action these controls over the information which they're storing over such a widespread and disparate area.
That's right.
In their organisations, because they're covering huge areas.
Massive, yeah.
Massive data stores, managing over a lot of people with a lot of different needs and requirements.
Absolutely. And the querying of that data is something that always interests me as well. Like we've seen, certainly here in the UK, that subject access requests, DSARs,
yes,
real big challenge for organisations. I know that some, medical establishments or some hospitals, they receive up to 40 DSARs a month. And I know that local authorities struggle with this as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that in recent weeks we've had a few high-profile cases where some high-profile individuals have submitted subject access requests to their bank to try and understand the decision making behind how they were treated as a customer.
Yeah.
And this is just going through the roof. Finance houses are being subjected to lots of DSARs from their customers because of the recent crisis with the finance commissions scandal.
Yes.
So I'm seeing, DSARs are a real big problem and they're growing. Is that something you've felt, you've seen with your organisation, Graham, in, been helping organisations deal with subject access requests effectively?
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. Are they open to tooling or are they just throwing bodies at it? Like, what do you think?
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Being able to do this,
transparency,
the transparency, and being able to find out what data is being held on an individual, and help to understand why they've made decisions that they have, is a huge revelation. It's so important to know what information is being held on you.
Really is.
Most people don't have a clue as to what level of information is being held from their phones to the services they log into, to the high street establishments that we know and trust.
Yep.
And what they're doing with the data. So to start with, I'll say it's a good thing.
It is.
It's a really good thing.
Absolutely.
And something fundamental needs to change with the way that organisations manage their data in order to be able to serve these requests quicker and accurately and appropriately.
Yes. Yeah.
And fundamentally agree with that. As a starting position, you've got to look at the data you're holding, which is of no purpose and no value anymore.
That's right.
It's because you've got to search it.
Yes.
You've got to sift through all that information
and show that you have.
And show that you've done it.
Yeah.
And it's not safe in an archive. It's not safe in a backup. because that's got to be searched as well. If you look at the actual the rules on this, you've got to go back through anything that you're storing and holding.
Absolutely.
So don't store it. It's such a fundamental principle.
Yeah.
If it serves no use to the business, there's nothing which supports the vision, the strategy, the behaviors, the working processes of the business. Why the hell are you storing it? Just get rid of it.
Yeah.
And, so I completely agree. I think DSARs and the level of reporting and auditing that is required should be seen as a catalyst for change in the way that information is managed in a business.
Absolutely.
And it should be, how are we processing our data? In other words, what do we do with our data day to day? That's just another process. DSARs and access requests are just another process that needs to happen, which should be expected on data. So get yourself in a good place for it.
It's going to happen. Absolutely right.
So get rid of it. As far as the actual processing is concerned, yes, there are tools, there's Purview, there's DSAR's capability within 365.
Yes.
Which, in my opinion, you buy a pack of searches at the moment. So currently, as this is being recorded, and tomorrow it will all change, of course. But at the moment, you have to. There's a level that you can do within the E5 licensing.
Yes.
However, to do it properly, you have to. It's then further expense on top.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it will cost you for each and every search.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't want to be in that position.
No, especially if you're receiving quite a few DSARs a month.
It's going to rack up.
In fact, I'm seeing quite a lot of organisations lean on their lawyers to deal with this.
Okay.
And so, perhaps those organisations where they haven't got large IT teams and they receive a subject access request from either an aggrieved ex-employee or an ex-customer, something like that.
Yep.
And the organisation is saying, look, well, this is scary. Like, I've got to comply with this regulation. I need to disclose all the data that we hold on this individual, hand it to their lawyers, to their legal firm, and say, right, help me out. How can I deal with this? And I know that a lot of these law firms are approaching their junior solicitor and saying, right, Gavin, Gary, or Lucy,
make that go away.
Just your job for the next 2 weeks is to search all of this data, like with a fine-tooth comb, to find anything that's relevant to this individual. And that is Slack records, files, emails, replies, CCs, like a massive task.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I think, the last time I looked, a junior solicitor is earning sort of upwards of 70,000, 80,000 a year, perhaps something like that. And they are spending weeks searching through data. Like, that's a massive problem that I think, can be fixed again with AI and with tooling and so I really think, as you say, Graham, I think DSARs and that whole sphere of transparency of the data is something that's really driving data governance and making sure organisations really get there first, like make sure that they understand what data they've got, how they can access it, and how they can disclose it and make decisions on that.
If we look at the way security has evolved, so security has always been baked in. It's always been a consideration. So if you're putting a new product together or a new process, new way of working, and that requires different storage, different access, security is in the room.
Yes.
Always. Security is part of the process. It's embedded. And we're used to that. And when you have this security first approach to everything, things are less likely to be missed. The reporting is there in advance. The control is there in advance. The tools are there. The right decisions have been made at the right time, and everybody can work. And the idea around security is for it to be appropriate and it to be at the right level. So people can still have their flexibility. Yes. They can still work in the way they want to, and they don't have to worry about it. They can be confident that security has been managed.
Yes.
By people who understand and knowledgeable and have made the right decisions.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Information management is behind.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're going to see going forward is there's going to be information management in the room. I think we're going to see data architecture in the room. is in the conversations.
Yes.
Because it's no longer just stand up a storage bucket here.
That's right.
Because it's not just a folder or a file share. It's going to be linked to things. It's going to be part of the process.
Yeah.
The data you're collecting, how are you identifying it? How are you classifying it as it's being created from now on? You know, how are these shiny AI tools going to know what to do with it if it's not been classified, categorized, stamped, metadataed, and stored
with a retention schedule,
with the right retention schedule and everything? And you can do all this up front. Security is a big scary subject if you come at it and look at the whole thing.
Yeah.
But we don't. That's not how we operate. We don't look at security like that anymore. We look at it in its appropriate response and appropriate levels.
Yes.
Information management is the same thing.
Absolutely.
Appropriate response, appropriate levels for the way that those processes are running. Do we need to just put a retention schedule around this data? Yes. Do we need to manage it within an inch of its life? No. Is it sensitive? No. Are we going to care about it in 18 months? No.
Well, and that's good point there, Graham. I think some people, or some organisations where I see retention schedules in place, and yes, it's not sensitive. It's something that we can delete tomorrow. And then even though it becomes out of retention and we can, disposition it or delete it, they still have a conflab about, should we still delete it?
I know. I know that decision should have been made already.
I know.
When it was before creation, it should have been made. Yeah. And we've got to do that. We've got to bring these knowledge management, information management, records managers, compliance people. They need to be brought into the conversations before at the beginning of everything, not brought in at the end and gone, oh yeah, we need a report on that.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Why?
So that's where we are with DSARs.
Yes.
We've got huge historical processes and storage that we've now got to sift through and find a way of doing it. Fortunately, isn't it amazing? We've got the Gimmal tools which can go through the information, do the discovery, do the classification, and we can do all that after the fact.
Absolutely.
On archived data, on data that's disparate, that's held in multiple places, that's local, cloud, on device. It'll do all of that, which is most of the battle, to be honest. But moving forward, for goodness sake, just get IM in the room and have those conversations and those decisions up front, and then unleash your Super Gizmo 2000 onto that costs you an arm and a leg per month.
That's right.
And then the overheads that I'm going to mention something about what I think about it. On the AI side of things, we are working actively putting in production systems that have AI elements.
Interesting.
They're not fully controlled by AI because there's lots of different moving parts, and the processes we tend to work with and automate are end to end. So there's lots of different touch points and lots of different activities and wheels turning.
Yeah.
But we do use AI agents and AI components and bots and things. And as part of a project that we were doing, we were spinning up an assistant. And it was early days in the project. It was still sort of discovery type, feasibility area. And it was a while ago.
Yeah.
So
an AI assistant, like a chatbot almost.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Exactly that. Exactly that. But in AI terms, this was an eon ago. It was probably 6 months.
Okay.
And we were testing this and prototyping it. And at some point during towards the prototyping, the project took a different angle, and we didn't need the assistant element anymore.
Okay.
However, in the environment, unknown to us, so there was an error in the configuration, and instead of at the end of usage of the assistant, instead of wiping itself, starting fresh, and starting from a clean slate, it replicated itself, and it doesn't just replicate the assistant; it replicates the storage and the other parts of the other components are replicated with it.
Okay.
And I was in the environment the other day looking at some other stuff and some other things we were working on. And I happened to notice this. I thought, oh, that's that thing we were working on, that prototype. So I went to check it. So it turned out it made multiple hundreds of copies of itself. So it was burning storage. It was costing money.
Oh, no.
So it was costing dollars just sitting there, replicating. I went to remove it and you couldn't do it through the interface because it grown too large and too multiplied too much. So it had to be an API calls and we had to do command line stuff to clear it out. But it was, we found it and we cleared it out. The interesting thing is there was no alert, no notification. There was nothing. It was just silent fail in the background, clicking up a bill.
Oh my goodness.
No idea that this was happening. And that was
the first time you'd know would be, I suppose.
Well, I will say it. There is a level of, when we're working with mature systems like Google and like Microsoft, there's a level of expectation. Because if you remove files, it's like you delete a raft of files from a OneDrive library, you get an email. Somebody gets an email to say this person has deleted this. It's immediate. It's absolutely immediate. There's consistency to monitoring, to the behaviors of what's going on. Is this out of behavior? Is this unusual activity? And there are security products that do that. Is this out of behavior? Is this unusual activity? If we look at the records management side of things and we look at the products, the Gimmal products, there's you can see peaks, you can see spikes, you can see activity that has happened, and you could go back over it. These AI tools, there's nothing there yet.
It's just happening in the background somewhere.
It's just happening in the background.
Causing carnage.
And we haven't got a clue. And until you find it manually.
Yeah. That's worry, isn't it?
That shows the level of immaturity to this space at the moment. So I think bringing in the real applications, the mature applications, to at least manage what's being created and generated.
Yeah.
We've got to do it.
Absolutely.
Because there's nothing else there. And the guys providing the organisation, providing the platforms, I don't care. You carry on. You fill up what you want. You keep. They're standing up the data centers as fast as they can.
Of course, and your remit, do what you like with it. Absolutely. It doesn't really. I mean, it brings on the other subject we're about to talk about is the data you're training your AI on. Right, something that's quite important.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating. I love the fact that you can own a kitchen utensils shop, and you can create a chatbot or an assistant. And you can train that AI chatbot on all of the data that pertains to your industry. You could have like a Michelin star chef, in your chatbot, essentially, that you're, communicating with because you want to go and buy a knife or a fork or something that that you'd use in a kitchen. And it's like you're speaking to an expert in that industry. That's so powerful.
Yep.
But it all comes down to making sure that your AI mechanism is being trained on the right data. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So again, with organisations that are looking to adopt AI, there's got a lot of data that is simply not suitable or in its right format or relative to their application. Is that something you think is going to pose a problem for organisations that are looking for AI, or what's your opinion on that, Graham?
A lot more thought needs to go into what problem is being solved. So introducing a chatbot which goes across the company data.
Yeah.
What problem is that solving? That's just creating more problems. It's if you're trying to give your support people or customer service people the ability to look something up quickly, to provide information to somebody that's on the phone.
Right.
I get that.
Yeah. A Google for your own business, like get to your answer quicker.
Get to your answer quicker. Yeah. I get that. But it needs refining. It needs scoping. So how do we do that? We need to know what information is relevant for that chatbot to feed the person who's asking the questions. Okay, so how do we do that? So we need to find the information that's relevant? Has it already been created? Do the answers already exist? Probably. Okay.
Probably.
Where?
Yeah.
Who holds it, and who's responsible for it, and who manages that data?
Big questions.
And it's like, but yeah, big questions. Yeah, and in a big organization that's been running for any period of time, where they've been processing data and holding on to it, that's not going to be a simple thing. It's not going to be pointing at a folder and saying, yes, it's that folder and it belongs to that person. So I'll go and speak to that person and we'll get access to it, and we'll apply that information and train the model on that information. It's far more complex than that, because you're going to find it's disparate, it's spread out across the organization in different parts, different areas. So you can't just expect the AI to go and find it across and trawl everything.
No.
So you need to do a level of understanding, basic understanding, in what data you hold.
Absolutely.
And once you've found it, should it stay there? Because then you start to unpack the other questions. Is it in the right place? Is it being managed by the right person? Is it being managed at all?
Sure.
Or does everybody taking one step back and going, my data? Because then it just sits on their shoulders, whoever the responsible data owner is in the company.
That's right.
And it's their fault. So yes, there's huge value to be had from being able to have that information either available to process or to ask questions against. But you can't just put it on the whole thing. You've got to start to build out the corporate knowledge. You've got to build this corporate memory, and to do that, you need to understand what you've got and what's of value and what needs to be kept. These are all principles that are reasonably straightforward and very well known by knowledge management, information management experts, records managers, and compliance people, data protection owner people. All of these roles, this is well understood, this area. But I think they've never been so challenged.
Oh yeah.
It's
testing everyone.
It's testing everyone. And so not just the AI, but the ability, the multiple channels that you can work in. So just by pinging a piece of information across WhatsApp or across a Gmail account or, a social media account.
Yeah.
It's, those challenges are huge. So how are you going to control that? How are you going to make sure that information that must never touch any of those channels is kept in the right place under the right controls?
Yeah.
And we can automate this now. So one of the areas where Office Labs works is with the Gimmal solutions.
Yes.
Is to put that level of automation around. Identify, find the information. We found it, categorize it, okay, and then tag it, catalog it, and then put the rules around it, then put the actions on it, which then moves that information to the right place, notifies the right people, puts it in the right reports, and so you've got some confidence that you've got this information going on, much in the way the security products work. These information management products will do it behind the scenes for you. You can say, I found this data. And it's better to be err on the side of caution.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
It's better to have those false positives where my data's just been locked down.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
fix that.
We can fix that. Yeah. But better that it's locked down than my data's just all been released.
As we've seen in the news, yeah.
Yes, quite. It's and that's getting more. That's more prevalent now.
It is. It's a problem. On that sort of subject, then, Graham, what do you think in the industry that really is your big bugbearer? Like, what is broken? You think that needs fixing massively, and that could be from a vendor perspective, from a channel perspective. Like, what do you think that if you were to make an impact tomorrow to make things slightly better than they are now, what really would you do?
There's two areas for me.
Yeah.
One we've touched on, which is the hoarding.
Yes.
For goodness sake, stop hoarding the data. It doesn't have any value anymore.
That's right.
Nobody cares about that PowerPoint slide set that you built in 2017 for one meeting internal that nobody's ever seen. It's just not neat. No. So that's one. The second one is just enabling people. So it's supporting people in their work. So I think my biggest bugbear is the low value tasks that we expect of people.
What do you mean by that?
So, as you've been hired into a role, to be the expert at what you do, or at least, bring the skills. There are skills that you have, which you were hired on and hired for to work in the organization. So you were brought in as an expert, as someone who has skills and experience in what you do, and a company saw value in that, saw value in you. So come on board, welcome to the team. Let's get you started. Let's get you productive. And for people in a role, it's so important to be productive. You've got to feel that you are producing something of value to feel valuable in yourself.
Absolutely.
You really do. Or else, that value drops away. What's the point? What's the point?
Yeah.
And then you go and give me a task, which is to do DSAR or sift through this data, or manage this for me, or do this part of the process. Oh, and can you do it again? And when it's done in 10 minutes, can you do it again? And then can you do it again? And it ends up at the point where people are dreading going to work the next day.
Yeah.
They're dreading the Monday morning alarm clock. And that feeds into their life. That affects their lives.
It's mine too. I get it. It's so painful. Yeah. Especially when you can fix some of these repetitive. In fact, this is why AI is great. AI for those repetitive, mundane tasks.
Yes.
I mean, it's life changing.
I believe it's life changing, and what you're going to end up with if you can avoid that, or you can come back from that, and allow people a bit more time. So one thing we do in Office Labs, we give everybody enough study time in the week to spend time learning and evaluating and exploring.
That's commendable. Yeah.
You have to in the technology industry. It's so hard to keep up anyway.
Yeah,
you need a bit of breathing room to go, right, I need time to read this. I need focus time. So if you've got people their role is to come in and rubber stamp and move documents around, I'm not figuratively, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're just doing that, and that's their role. They're going to die inside, and they're going to start looking for another job.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to have the retention. You are going to have high turnover of people. You're also not going to have people who are invested in doing more and doing better. They're not going to be. They're not engaged. And I think the information management has a huge part to play in how people are engaged, because they need the right data at the right time to do their job appropriately.
That's right.
It's fundamental.
It really is. Yeah.
So then, if you support them and you support them in their day-to-day working processes and the practices and the way they operate, and they know that this is taken care of, or they know that if they make a mistake, it'll be picked up. That again, that's another area of data sensitivity and responsibility. You're putting this huge weight of responsibility on people.
Yes.
Well, you didn't classify that right. You didn't put the right metadata on. You didn't save it with the right file name. Oh, we always save things in this area which are like that. And we always put sensitive data. We always put an S at the end of the file name.
Yeah, that's... I see that so much with our customers sometimes.
And it's just not necessary anymore.
Yeah.
It's not necessary. When the tools, the applications, and the people and the support are out there to be able to put these solutions into place.
That's right.
To support people, to protect them and look after them and make sure that they're not responsible and they're not exposed to this level of risk and legal ramifications.
Yeah, I agree with you.
They could be walked out the door or walked off site because of a mistake they made, which was a genuine mistake.
Absolutely.
And we don't have to do that. So that's my biggest bugbear.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Is supporting people in their work.
Yeah, it's a good one.
In their roles. I would like to know more about, if we've got time to talk about it, I want to know Gimmal's viewpoint on not just AI, but in data regulations, how they see things moving forward and what the big picture is. We spend time in the documentation, the READMEs, We know about the functions, the features. We understand the buttons and the sliders and the things we can do. But where are Gimmal coming from, and where do they see themselves in the market going forward to support people in their roles and support organisations which are faced with this continual ongoing growth of data?
Yeah.
I'm interested in that.
Good question. Well, I think the right place to start is AI, because 80% of our conversations are around AI. So when we're speaking with prospects and customers, really what they're saying is that I want to get the benefits from AI. I understand that or I've read somewhere that I need to make sure that our data is in order, or we're halfway through a Copilot trial, and we've realized that, our house is not in order, right? That's something that tends to come to us from a customer standpoint. So I'll start with that first. So really for us, I'm just talking about Discover and Gimmal Records here. Like, that is usually our first point of call, like helping organizations understand what data they've got, where it exists, and what happens to that data and those records from that point onwards, so that their data in their organization is in readiness for AI adoption. Like that's like the number one conversation we're having regularly. And a lot of the fringe conversations are around like data risk, inaccessible, stale data that exists on their file shares, for example, like helping organizations reduce risk in terms of not storing data that they think is, that poses a risk to the business that can be deleted. And of course, having that disposition to be able to stand by and say, look, we've deleted this data that's sensitive, and these are the reasons why. This is the data it was deleted on, so that, you have to stand in a court of law, if you're on legal hold, for example, we're able to help organizations deal with that. So that's something that's really, really important. And most of our customers some of our customers are under legal hold and have been so for over 10 years. So, so a lot of our customers approaching us and saying, look, we can see that our legal hold is being dropped in the next 6 to 18 months. We want to get ourselves ready to manage our data from that point onwards, because we've been through the court. It's been really painful.
Yeah.
Like, the judges have told us that, we've been lacking in certain areas in terms of our data integrity. Like, that's super important. Data integrity is something that we really help organizations deal with. And most of our customers want to, start afresh and get to a point of readiness from that point onwards. So that's something we're seeing. But for us, in terms of Gimmal and what we do, like AI and readiness for AI is our number one conversation. Helping organizations make sure their data is in order so they can reap those benefits of AI that's promised and talked about so much. And managing, once we've discovered and understood what data they've got, what compliance mandates govern and regulate that data, what then happens beyond it. So retention schedules, like disposition, as I've mentioned, helping organizations make sure that they're not creating a big problem in the back end there where they're, as we discussed, lots of data that's high value and not required anymore. So that's just in terms of our discovery and records. Yeah. But as you know, we've also got migration mechanisms, of course, as well. And of course, Link Enterprise. Yes. And I understand you've got some customers that take advantage of Link Enterprise as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the opportunity for that is significant. So when we talk about Link Enterprise, we're looking at organizations that have SAP. Yep. And, using SharePoint as their storage repository for SAP. And that's super beneficial. And I don't know, Graham, if you've got any examples that you think is worth discussing where organizations have made the change and reaping the benefits, of course, from the SharePoint compliance that's innately within Microsoft SharePoint, helping them be more compliant. That's something you've seen with your customers, is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So compliance is a huge factor and a big value. The Enterprise Link has got multiple levels of value and improvement and benefits with the information that's generated. So within SAP, you have the transaction, and then you have the file that goes with it, the actual documents, PDFs, Word document, whatever they are. And we've seen this in organizations where the documents are stored within the SAP repositories. and that's pretty much a closed area. So there are things you can do with it. There are definitely things that you can expand and you can extend within SAP to do that. But you're still within their framework, their scope, and in their world. Enterprise Link actually connects to the transaction, so you can pull the transactional data and the document information through and store it in SharePoint. It doesn't cut it off from SAP or from the transaction. When things are updated, the communication is two-way, or can be one-way, can be two-way, whatever's needed. The huge benefit is, of course, organizations that are within SAP and also a Microsoft customer. You can start to have this data, which is your data, and you can start to process it within the 365 environment. So you've got that transactional record, you've got the document information, all open to the tools and all the applications that are within 365.
That's right.
So you've got the entire Power Platform. So you can start to bring automation in. You can start to use that data and pass it on and bring it into other process flows. So again, you've reduced repetition.
Yeah.
You don't need to do it twice. You've got the data in one place. SAP is your central repository. It's your one version of the truth. It's where everything is.
That's right.
For that is ingested and comes in and is your golden information. But you can start to use that data and pass it around into other flows that need it.
Yeah. SharePoint's so good for that.
Oh, it's so flexible.
It really is. And the cost, of course, as well.
It's cheap.
It is.
In comparison.
Yeah.
In comparison, SharePoint storage is some of the cheapest. Definitely.
Good. Yeah. So really, we are all about end-to-end data governance. So really, our messaging is that wherever your data exists, like whether you're talking physical data, unstructured data, whether it be data in Exchange or on an endpoint, or even structured data. Did I mention structured data or structured data? Yeah, I think I did twice. We are that end-to-end vendor that will look after your data no matter where it exists. And we touched on it earlier on in relation to Microsoft houses, particularly for those organizations that have data in repositories other than Microsoft. Like, we're a really good fit because we can really give you that visibility over all of that data.
So important to have that unified view of the world. The fact that you can manage everything from digital to paper is just mind-blowing.
Incredible.
It's so good. I mean, you could now feasibly introduce AI into managing paper records.
Yeah.
For me, that's hilarious. I mean, that's
exactly.
You can use the most up-to-date, cutting-edge technology to manage your dusty boxes in the back of a warehouse.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's exactly what we do.
Yeah. For me, that's
It's that story recently in the news where I think Elon Musk went down to Iron Mountain to pick up the details.
Yes.
And you couldn't retire in the US, I think, until Elon Musk had gone down to fetch out your retirement document. Yeah, that's a good example of how we can help manage that.
Yeah, we can make that go away.
But certainly, for us in Gimmal, in UK and Europe in particular, is a really good space for us to work in because we are highly regulated. A lot of organisations are struggling with data challenges.
Yeah.
They're struggling to understand what data they've got, where it exists.
Yep.
They're struggling with their legal ramifications that we discussed with DSARs, with legal holds. Like, so much is required of organisations in the UK and Europe now of their data. And really, we really do help organisations deal with all of those challenges. And so if anyone wants to pick up the phone and call me and take a demonstration, or Graham, of course, here, feel free.
That was the advert, yeah?
That was the advert.
Oh, was the advert.
Do you think it works?
Little blatant for me. I don't tend to be quite as
salesy.
It's a skill I need to learn. I haven't got there yet.
No, all good.
I'm a bit too. I got into a conversation the other day with an organisation that had been moved. We had it done to us. They got moved to 365. No training, no handout. Yeah, we had a leaflet go around.
Okay, victims of this.
Victims of the migration of being of being moved.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so I gave some what I thought would be helpful.
Yeah.
We can come in, take a look at how you work. We haven't got any money. Okay. Okay. It's okay. We can work with what we've got. Let's work with what we've got. Who's involved in looking after your information, your infrastructure, and the rest of it? And us, one person. Okay. All right. So, okay. We could probably send you information. We could send you the right direction. We can point you towards vendors and just knowledge around how to better get more out of your environment, how to look after your information better. There's things built in to 365 into Google which you can make use of. So there's stuff there which you can just click. I haven't got time to read it.
Oh,
and then by the end
painful.
of it, it was super painful. I've even forgotten where I was going with the story. But
take a horse to water.
It was kind of like that. It was difficult. But anyway, where was I going with this? The types of organisation we talk to.
Yeah.
They're so diverse. The diversity of healthcare, charities through to banking, finance, logistics, manufacturing. We've got a manufacturing client that uses IoT monitoring devices.
Okay, yeah.
So they're collecting a huge amount of structured data, and they're just collecting and collecting and collect. And again, there's nothing in place there to how you going. What are you going to do with it?
What's the plan? Yeah.
What is the plan? And once when you're collecting all this, are you doing analysis on it? Are you doing trend analysis? Are you going to actually put some data science around this?
Sure.
And start mining that information for metrics, for knowledge, for behaviors? And I don't think it's been thought of because they're so operational. They're so of the moment.
Yeah.
Everything has to be done right now. It's all, in the moment. And I think if you don't consider where you're going to be in 3 years, 5 years, and you don't start making those plans and bringing in the right tools at the right time. Like I said, if people don't think twice of doing it with security products, but they do think twice. They don't seem to latch on to the information management products.
That's right.
And put in the right applications at the right time, which are appropriate. Again,
because I think security is the sexy area of. I don't know. Is it?
Not for me.
Not for me either. Just that's super clear.
Information security. Yeah. Well, information security. Yeah. There's an information manager. Yeah. That's
you can tell because you go around some of these shows like InfoSec for being one of them.
Oh yeah.
And most of the kiosks or the stands are just cocktail bars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A bit different in the data governance space.
Yeah. We're much more mature in the data governance space.
Well, thanks for your time joining us on today's podcast. If you like what you heard today, do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for the notifications. And we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.